Hey folks, hope you're all doing well and welcome back to the channel. So we're doing a show on a Monday, just kind of odd, but special occasion here. We've got Tim Durling, who's going to come on and talk about his book that he put out on Fleetwood Mac, The Sound That Haunts You. And the foreword of the book was written by Pete Pardo, so he also agreed to come on. So we're going to talk to Tim and Pete and geek out a little bit on Fleetwood Mac. So to help me with that endeavor, we've got Mr. Tim Durling and Pete Pardo. How you guys doing tonight?
Good, Hack. How you doing?
Doing all right, man. Doing all right. Okay, so I guess to start off, Tim, why Fleetwood Mac and what got you interested in writing a book about them?
This is kind of a different book for me. Anybody that's kind of followed the books that I've written, I tend to write on not only harder rock bands for the most part, but also bands that are a little bit more obscure. And Fleetwood Mac is definitely not that, although there are quite a few obscure periods. But this book kind of started off life from an offhanded comment that my mother-in-law made. She said one time, I don't know how long it's been, she said, Tim, when are you going to write me a Fleetwood Mac book? Once I'd started to write books. And I don't think she meant it. But I got thinking about it. And honestly, Fleetwood Mac is a group that I still consider myself a relative newcomer to their music. I've only been really listening to them for about 12 years now, since my wife and I got together. And so her mother, my mother-in-law, was a big fan. And so she passed that along. And so Sarah would always be playing these album tracks that I'd never heard before. I grew up listening to the radio in the 80s. I knew Fleetwood Mac, but I only knew the singles. I never really delved any deeper. And I came to realize that, there's a reason that this band is so beloved. They wrote really, really catchy songs. And I also realized that there was a vast history of this group that unfolded long before they were worldwide stars. I mean, the crazy thing, and it's such a testament to how different the music industry was in the 70s, but that self-titled album from 1975, some people probably think that was their first album.
It
was actually their 10th. And that their 10th studio album. That's not even counting all that extra material that was on the Chicago Blues album and all the ones that came out on the compilations, The English Rose, Pious Bird of Good Omen, all of that, the singles that came out by themselves. And that was one thing that was really interesting. But also there's a lot of stuff in this century to talk about. Not a lot, but I don't know if people are familiar with the more recent Fleetwood Mac stuff or not. So me being a completist, anytime I get into a band, it's never just buy 2 or 3 albums. But where would someone even start with this band? Where do you even begin? If you've got Rumors or the self-titled or the 88 Greatest Hits or the Dance, that's just scratching the surface, right? All those Bob Welch albums, all those Peter Green albums, all those comps with different songs on them. So I thought, okay, I'm going to write this as exactly as I called it, a beginner's companion. If you were, this is the book that I wish somebody had handed to me when I was like, where do I even start with this group? To say, here are the albums, here's the songs on them, here's what they sound like, and take it from there. So it just kind of gives you an idea of where to go next, what all is out there. I tried to cover every officially released Fleetwood Mac song there is. I think I may have missed a couple, but I tried to give a pretty good scope of just what is out there, and also what exactly are Fleetwood Mac songs that you might think aren't, that you might think, they're originals by somebody else. So, so the idea came kind of by mistake, but I'm glad it did. It turned out really well.
All right, I just want to say hello to a few people that joined us here. We got Cushman's with us. Welcome, Cushman. Papa Blue, how are you? There's Russell Marquardt, Jay Miller, Tyler Patterson. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, bands morph, but Fleetwood Mac, they morph to the extreme.
Transform.
You know what I mean? Like you listen to Rumors and then go listen to Then Play On and say, well, that's the same band.
Same entity.
Yeah. Or compare the 2 Fleetwood Mac records.
Oh, the
68
'68.
Mac
Yeah, that's
and
right.
the '65 Fleetwood Mac, and you're like, okay, that's the same band.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
trip. I mean, there are so many individual songs that you can play for someone and say, "Who is this?" They'll guess everybody except Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah, yeah. And Pete, I read your forward. You kind of summarized it really nicely, the whole different variations and the changes and
Well, I
everything
mean,
else.
I was very happy that Tim had asked me to do that because I've been very familiar with this catalog for a long time, and I'll be the first to tell you, it's like the three eras are so, and there's really more than that when you think about it, but the
Yeah,
three main eras are so different from each other. But when you really listen to the catalog from start to finish, I think the most interesting aspect is the Bob Welch era, because I think really that prepares you for what's to come next, because that whole California rock sound starts to happen during the Bob Welch era. They're leaving the blues behind. They're moving into something different. It's not fully formulated yet, but it's getting there. And I always feel really bad that Bob Welch didn't really get to enjoy the success that he should have gotten in this band, because those albums didn't really sell all that well. There's a bunch of them, but I think they're really good. And Tim really hit on when he was, the chapters that talk about those albums. There's a lot of really great nuggets on a lot of those Bob
Fantastic
Welch albums. Yeah, really good.
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
and Pete, thank you for doing that intro. I knew you'd be into doing that. And yeah, I've gained, anytime I do one of these books, I have to listen really hard to the entire catalog, and I have gained a whole new appreciation for that Bob Welch era. I always liked what I'd heard, but really digging in, it is such an important stepping stone because, like you said, going from the debut in '68 or Mr. Wonderful straight to the self-titled album would be like musical whiplash. The Bob Welch cushions you along the way.
Yeah. And Hack, you mentioned Then Play On, which is my favorite of the early stuff.
Yeah.
I wish they would have done another album like that. If Peter Green didn't go through what he went through with whatever bad acid he was taking or whatever happened during that time period, I would have loved to have heard another album in that kind of vein, because I think they were really starting to get a little bit more of a hard rock sound going on there.
yeah,
Very, very guitar oriented and less of, I'm not as much big on the Jeremy Spencer stuff, that kind of like old style rock and roll that he brought to the table. But I think that album is a true like Peter Green and Danny Kerouan album. And I think that I would have loved to have heard another album like that. I think that they were really clicking there. And they were doing songs like Green Man Alicia and all that. It's getting a little heavier, and it's like, but it wasn't meant to be, unfortunately.
yeah. Green Man Alicia.
It's just fantastic. And I mean, then you go to Kiln House, which is Spencer and Kerouan. I've been told so many different ways to pronounce it, but before Bob Welch came on board, and that is such a retro throwback.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like it's a speed bump, because Then Play On is you're right. There's still some blues on there, but it's changing. It's morphing into something else. And you wonder what would have been like if Peter Green had hung in there a little bit longer.
Yeah, I mean, Then Play On. It's got some heavy stuff on it. There's some heavy distorted guitar on that. You mentioned Green Man Alicia. There's a few instrumentals on there.
Playing for Madge and stuff.
I was like banging my head listening to that one.
Yeah, they're jamming. That's some jams on there. Yep.
Yeah.
They're fighting for her, and then they're waiting for her. I think those are the two songs.
Madge.
Yeah, Madge. I don't know who Madge was, but she sure kicked up a storm. But man, there's some really heavy stuff on that. I really like the first record as well. I mean, there's some really good, just nice, slow blues where you're very, very sparse with just the guys, and Peter Green is just ripping some amazing leads like Merry Go Round, that just so nice and slow and emotive, and and the one thing that nobody talks about with Peter Green, that guy's an amazing singer. He's got a voice.
It's a very, very pleasant voice to listen to. It's not like a blues guitarist that sings a little bit.
No,
he had a pleasant sounding voice. He could perfectly deliver. I mean, he did. In the UK, they had a lot of hit singles with him.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there's like, I mean, and then Play On, like they kind of got a little bit away from the blues thing. There's a song on there called Closing My Eyes, which is just so haunting. It's like a spaghetti western
Yeah.
with kind of like a haunting vibe to it. And there's not, it's so sparse, and it's just like his voice and just a little bit of guitar. And my God, that guy just, what an amazing singer. It's a damn shame, man.
And you really find a lot of fans who grew up with the Peter Green era are very, very loyal to that era. And a lot of them don't accept anything that came afterwards.
Yeah.
I have met so many people over the years
Yeah.
who were like, it's Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac, and that's it. And they are not interested in Buckingham-Nicks or anything else that came afterwards.
Yeah.
They only like that early blues stuff. And
To
I get it.
that's Fleetwood Mac.
Yes.
Everything else is, that's just that pop stuff.
And I hate to say it, but they're mostly Brits who say that.
Yeah, it was definitely more of a UK thing in the beginning, but I mean, certainly, I mean, in my case, I first became aware that Fleetwood Mac had a life before Lindsay and Stevie via Aerosmith, because in 1991, Pandora's Box came out, which was their first box set, and because of the age that I was, that's the first box set I ever ended up buying. It's the first time a band that I was currently listening to put out a box set. So it has a really raw take on Rattlesnake Shake.
That's right.
And I remember hearing that and reading that's a Fleetwood Mac song. Who's Peter Green? I've never heard of him.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like anything Fleetwood Mac that I know of. So that's when the lens started to open a little bit. Okay, there's a lot.
And we had the
more
same
here.
thing for those of us who were a few years older. We went through the same thing with Black Magic Woman and Green Manalishi. I thought those were that was a Santana and a Judas Priest song, and I'm like, who the hell's Peter Green, right?
Yeah.
And like, it's like, is that same band that does Go Your Own Way and all that? Like, wow, that's interesting, right? And then your whole world is opened up, right? Because you got all these albums.
Yeah.
Well, that first album, I mean, I could see the Brits kind of going the way you were saying, Pete, because that first album, from what I read, was very successful. Like, they were successful right out of the gate. It was a high charting record. It sold a lot of copies, right? So
it did nothing here, but over there. Well, at that time, British blues boom was in big. You had Chicken Shack, you had Jethro Tull, you had Free, and all these other bands. Well, Free was a little bit later, but you had all these bands that were playing in a similar style. The whole, borrowing from the Chicago blues scene and doing it, their own way. So there was a lot of bands doing that. It was very hot at the time.
Yeah.
To illustrate the difference, that first album hit number 4 on the UK charts. In the States, it peaked at 198, barely charted.
Yep.
Yeah. They got it in those early records, man. They got to keep Mick Fleetwood off those album covers.
Well, okay. So I'll be honest with you. One of the reasons I thought of Pete to talk to for doing the intro is I got such a kick out of he and Martin Popoff doing that episode about bad album covers.
Yeah,
and Fleetwood Mac have some of the absolute worst.
Yeah, they are terrible.
To the point where I really wasn't going to have a lot of graphics in this book. I ended up changing that, but I still, if anybody's got the book, they'll see that I got creative with Heroes Are Hard to Find, because that's a rough one. I covered that partially up with a CD.
Yeah,
because that's a terrible, terrible cover. Yeah, Mick obviously had no problem dropping trowel for the camera or dressing in drag or whatever, right? Like what was English Rose? He's got frightening. And I don't understand how any record label would think, that'll get people buying the albums. There you go. Yeah, I mean, it's
his rib cage in all its glory, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Eat a sandwich, Mick.
Yeah, maybe you could afford one back then.
Yeah,
but the Bob Welch stuff. I mean, I like in getting ready for the show, I was saying to Tim earlier that I've been listening to a lot of Fleetwood Mac, and like the Bob Welch stuff is completely new, and it's one of those, I guess, mini catalogs that you kind of got to spend a little bit of time with. It's not, first listen and it kind of grabs you. Those records, they take some effort. For me anyway, to get into them. The Christine McVie stuff, that stuff always pops out because that's like, oh, that's Fleetwood Mac. Because you're used to that vocal, right? But the stuff that Bob's singing, it's like, wait a minute, that takes a little bit more effort to get into. But
Yeah, stylistically, it's kind of all over the place, right? Because there's
very,
they're
very much so.
doing,
But 5 albums in 3 years, it was a very prolific period.
yeah.
But I mean, Bob obviously went on to become a solo artist in his own right. But Danny was a perfectly good singer too.
Yeah. Really good guitar player also. Another like underrated talent, I think.
Yeah.
The big difference I noticed from, I mean, apart from the Lindsay and Stevie being in the band for the second Fleetwood Mac record, 1975, self-titled, was those songs immediately, the way they're arranged and played, everything just got very tight and very concise. Whereas the Bob Welch stuff, a lot of it's kind of jammy, kind of it's like it's just always a guitar, something always going in the background, right? And you listen to this stuff with Lindsay. I mean, if he's playing a guitar part, it's part of the song. Like it's part of the fabric of the song. He's not just sitting back there kind of noodling, right? So it's almost like they totally arranged it and made it more, I don't know, accessible, maybe, definitely more hooky, and
more concise.
And very concise. Yeah, it's like they sharpen the tip of the spear, so to speak, right? And so you could tell like the contributions of Lindsay right out of the gate were like instant,
Genius arranger. I always say that he thought like 6 steps ahead of everyone, whether it was one of his own songs or one of Stevie's songs or one of Christine's songs. He would sprinkle his magic dust on them and make them better and make them translate to a wide audience. But there's so many songs on those Welsh albums, especially the Christine songs, that really wouldn't have sounded out of place on those later albums, like Spare Me a Little of Your Love or Morning Rain. Like she was the, if you're going to introduce someone to it, like Hack said, you hear Christine's vocal, you go, well, that's Fleetwood Mac. It's the familiar sound.
Yeah.
But there are songs on there that could have easily been, they could have been hits back in the day. And there are so many songs that I think should be classic rock radio staples now, and give some of those more well-known songs a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
Loosen up your playlist a little bit.
If only radio worked that way, though,
I know. Oh, don't I know it? But the nice thing is that some of those albums did certify later. Like Bare Trees was certified platinum. It took until 1988. That's a fantastic album. That might be my favorite, with Mystery to Me right behind it, which did certify gold. So at least some of those albums, people did go back and buy them. I just think that they're still pretty widely unknown for most people, even most people that call themselves Fleetwood Mac fans.
With some of those Christine songs, it's like, imagine if they had a little bit of that Lindsay Buckingham magic sprinkled on them.
Yeah.
They would have been, right along with the stuff that we know.
Yeah. Well, that live 1975 album that just came out, well, if you bought the deluxe edition of the 75 album, you'd have gotten it anyway. But it's got Hypnotized, and it's got some of those and some of those earlier songs with Lindsay and Stevie. And it's really cool because obviously they didn't have a huge catalog of their own stuff at that point. They just had the one album, and they had the Buckingham-Nicks album. So they did Don't Let Me Down Again. But hearing, I know this isn't Bob Welch per se, but Kilnhouse, hearing Lindsay and Stevie do Station Man is so cool. And it just further reinforces that these are Fleetwood Mac songs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I know it doesn't have to be said, but as a guitar player and all-around musician, Lindsay is one of these guys that's just on a different level.
He's the thinking man's guitar hero.
Oh, man. There's not one wasted note. Everything has a purpose, and his solos are just unbelievable. But even the parts that he's sprinkling throughout the song, I mean, those are the earworms that get you into the tune. A lot of times, it's what he's playing kind of beneath the vocal. Guy's amazing, phenomenal musician. Yeah. So Yeah, I mean, and that getting to the Lindsay era now. I mean, they had their high points and low points as well. I mean, they weren't always hitting them out of the park, right? And it's hard to follow up something like Rumors. I mean, that hiatus between Rumors and Tusk and them trying to, follow that up. I mean, Tusk did quite well. I think it sold like 2 million. I read somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then that was a double album, which was like, hey, we're gonna go all out on this, and
Yeah.
yeah, they kind of, and then of course when Lindsay left, and they put out those, they had was it Rick Vito and
Vito and Billy Burnett joined.
Yeah.
They joined for the Tango in the Night tour, and then they had the 2 songs and the greatest hits. Then they had Behind the Mask, and then Vito left. And then they put, what I think is the nadir of their recording career, that album Time,
yeah,
from 1995, which I just think is, if it was any more bland and generic, it would just come in a package that said music album. Like if you listen to Behind the Mask, and you can really hear the lack of Lindsay on there. Even on the better songs, you're like, Lindsay just would have done something. I don't know what. He would have tightened them up a little bit. I think Save Me is a fantastic song, but the album needed a few more of those. The songs that Billy Burnett sang just sound too country to my ears. The Stevie songs are fine, but they sound like they could have been on one of her albums. It's usually Christine, again, like the early days, that comes through with the really steady songs. But then you get to the Time album, and you go, Behind the Mask was a masterpiece compared to this.
For that, yeah.
Like, that's almost one of my favorite chapters to write, though, because I just couldn't wait to unleash on it, because like, this is so bad. And I always say this because I started working in radio in the early 90s, and I was not aware Fleetwood Mac had an album out in 1995. Honest to God, that's how under the radar that went. I mean, they're doing. If you look back at the tour dates for that album, and it was a weird lineup too. They had Becca Bramlett and Dave Mason, and like Billy Burnett wasn't even there for the first part of the recording. That's why you've got Michael Thompson, like the studio guitarist on some of those tracks. He came back. They go on tour, and they're doing multi-act bills, which they never had to do. Yeah. My theory is that Warner Brothers went to Mick Fleetwood and said, after that, and said, I don't care what you have to do. You get Lindsay and Stevie back, or you're off the label. I think that's why I know the reunion probably would have happened, but I think that's why it happened when it did.
Yeah, because I remember when that album was first announced, they did some sort of an interview on MTV, and I think people were shocked that this was the Fleetwood Mac you're presenting to us. And I remember seeing it advertised in some of the music magazines, but then like the album came out and it sank. And I remember hearing it. My first thought was like, okay, Dave Mason in Fleetwood Mac, he's a legend. I love Dave Mason. And I'm like, here you have this album where he's given nothing to do. And it's like, what a waste of his talent. And the songs aren't memorable. And it doesn't sound
outside songwriters, which is unusual. Yeah. Like it was a failed endeavor. I think there's one song on that Time record, one of Christine's songs, that's decent, but that's it. And that's a pretty poor percentage. Right. And the album, like, it just sank around the world. Yeah. I think it reached a peak of 47 in the UK, and that's as high as it charted. And that's just, and I don't even think they pressed enough copies for it. Like Behind the Mask, long before I got into the band, I remember like by 1991, that album was showing up in the cutout bins everywhere. Yeah. Like I remember seeing like stacks of long boxes with cuts taken out of the side because it just didn't sell. It went gold, but it didn't sell multi-millions. Time, it's like they didn't even print enough copies of it for it to get, cuts taken out of it. It was just a complete and utter black hole.
Yeah. What do you think of when Lindsay and Stevie came back in the last record, Say You Will?
Say You Will? Well, sorry, I've been fighting off a cold. Say You Will, I don't consider the last Fleetwood Mac album. I think that album that Lindsay and Christine put out in 2017 is a Fleetwood Mac album in all but name, because John and Mick are on it. I think it has to be some contractual stuff with the Stevie camp that prevents it from coming out under the Fleetwood Mac banner, because it's a great album and it sounds like Fleetwood Mac. The exact same thing I say about the last Steve Lukather album, Bridges. He's got Joseph Williams on it. He's got David Page. It's a Toto album. But the Jeff Porcaro's estate won't let them put new music out under that name. I said, that's a Toto album under a different name. But Say You Will is good. This is what I wish. Say You Will is actually quite good.
It is good.
What I wish they had done with that album, it's a little bit late, but it's the first Fleetwood Mac album with Lindsay after the CD age had really begun. It's too long. I think it's got 18 songs on it.
Yeah, it's very long.
20 if you get the deluxe version. So they could have broken that up into 2 10-song albums, put one out in 2003 and then one out in 2006. So we'd have another album to talk about. I think there are some good songs on there. I miss Christine on that album, especially where it is such a long album, because it's like Lindsay, Stevie, Stevie, Lindsay, Lindsay, Stevie, Lindsay, Stevie, Stevie. Christine just broke that up, having that extra voice in there, or the voice trading off with another one. Whereas the Buckingham-Nicks album from 2017, it's 10 songs. It's quite a short album. It's very listenable. And Lindsay and Christine always sounded good together. So I wish Say You Will had been like that album and like split up into 2 different albums.
Yeah, it's a little, maybe because Christine's not there, not so much keyboards, but I find that record like heavy, a little heavy for Fleetwood Mac, the last one, Let's Say You Will.
Yeah, it's got some pretty intense guitar stuff.
Yeah, heavy stuff in there.
It's got some more experimental stuff similar to Tusk, like it's like Morrow turning over in his grave.
Yeah, that's a great song. I love that song.
But it's a head trip, right?
Oh yeah.
But it's got good stuff on it. I just, like I said, it's a long album.
Yeah, too long. Yeah. So if for those that are interested in purchasing Tim's book, I have a link for it for Amazon in the description. So go and check it out. If you're interested in Fleetwood Mac, want to delve into Fleetwood Mac, are only familiar with one era of Fleetwood Mac. Yeah, there's the back. This walks you through it, and it's a nice, easy read. It's not take you hours to get through it. It's just I like that it's tight. It's like, here's a record, boom, 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 boom. Next one, boom, 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 boom. It's a nice, easy read, and I mean, I whipped through half of it like in one sitting. So yeah. Nicely done.
Thank you. Yeah, that was the idea. It was to be, listen to the album, read about it, listen to the album, or both at the same time. I also included a section at the end on, I found 100 different covers of Fleetwood Mac songs by 100 different artists, just to show the sheer range of bands that they influenced. Like Pete already mentioned, and the most famous example is Santana's Black Magic Woman. I mean, that's a worldwide hit single. That's a Fleetwood Mac song, and a lot of people don't know that. They probably think Carlos Santana wrote that. And a lot of Judas Priest fans probably think that, I don't know, metal fans tend to read the liner notes pretty closely, so they know. But I'll tell you, the original version of the Green Man Alishi, that's pretty darn heavy and creepy.
It's heavy.
I mean, that could have been on the first Sabbath album.
Yeah.
It's atmospheric and spooky, and it's got those deranged Peter Green howls at the end of it. But it's pretty amazing, the sheer breadth of artists that have covered that at one time or another were inspired enough to cover this band. So I took it upon myself. I didn't want to do 6 different versions of Songbird. No, 100 individual songs from that first album all the way through to Say You Will. People have covered songs off some of those albums, at least one.
Yeah. I mean, obviously myself being a big Priest fan and only knowing that version of Green Man Alishi, and then you listen to the Fleetwood Mac version, and you could tell what Judas Priest did. They picked out all the riffs, and they basically
they sort of straightened out the beat, but they kept the menace there.
They kept the menace. They kept some of the chord change. There's one run that they slightly changed a little bit, but the meat of the song is there, and they just they Priestified it, right? They made it heavy and
And the really cool thing about that is, like, that Priest version would have come out 78, 79. I mean, Fleetwood Mac, if they were said, yeah, by the way, that's a Fleetwood Mac song, what? I
don't remember that being on the Rumors album, right?
Exactly. Dreams, like.
Yeah, exactly. So again, if anyone's looking for the book, it's on Amazon. The link is below. Any last things you guys want to mention? before we
Just
sign off?
thanks for giving me the chance to talk about it, Pete. Thanks again for contributing to it.
Thanks for having me.
And yeah, the whole thing is to get people to either get into Fleetwood Mac or get further in and realize that there's a lot of great music if you go from the self-titled 75 to say Tango in the Night, but go further on both sides. There is some good stuff. Really, there's only one complete dud of an album. I think that's just my opinion. Somebody out there might like it.
I would agree.
Yeah, if you like the British blues, it's in there. If you want the pop songs that everybody knows, it's in there. You want to hear how they got from the British blues to the pop stuff, listen to the Bob Welch stuff.
Give that Bob Welch era. Just go to Bare Trees or Mystery to Me for a start, and just there's good stuff on there. Bare Trees. I mean, some anybody that listened to the radio in the late 70s will listen to that and go, wait a minute, I know this song, Sentimental Lady. Why do I know this song?
Yeah, that and Hypnotize both had some radio play. So
yeah. Hypnotize is such a good song.
Oh yeah, it's killer.
Yeah, Pete, you want to mention anything coming up on Sea of Tranquility?
Just normal stuff. We have our end of the year in the prog seat episode tomorrow night, so we're going to be all ranking our 5 favorite prog albums of the year. So that's coming up tomorrow, and then Sunday we'll be ranking the albums of the Swiss metal band Coroner. So that's coming up on Sunday. So a bunch of other things during the week, but the normal stuff.
Okay, and Tim, you've got some other books you've written. You want to talk about those for a bit?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay. I was there.
Yeah, everybody in the house is sick right now. Yeah, this is actually my 6th book, unbelievably. 5 years ago, I had no books. Now I've got 6. So I've got my first one Unspooled, which is mainly talks about the history of 8 tracks throughout the 80s when the record clubs still had them available. As a matter of fact, I got a picture in the Fleetwood Mac book of my Tango in the Night 8-track, which is a Columbia House, which is not something you probably thought existed. So then I did Down for the Count, the Y&T album review, which is still my biggest selling book. Let It Be Your Guide, the Kansas album review. Red on Black, Listener's Guide to Sammy Hagar, Sammy's solo stuff. That's like the Fleetwood Mac book, and then that one's all me. And just earlier this year, I put out Sing Me Away, the Night Ranger album review, and I've got a couple more that I'm working on right now. So
cool. And if you go on Amazon and just type in Tim's Durling,
all my books should come right up. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
And since the Fleetwood Mac book came out, Amazon dropped the price on all my older books. So
cool. There you go. Right, just in time for Christmas, right? Yeah, so folks, on this channel, a week from Thursday, Pete and I are going to be back with Grant Arthur, and we're going to be doing a show called Was Disco So Bad? So ponder that until next week. All right, folks, you guys hang on for a bit. We will catch you next time. Everybody have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone.